Hi guys, I hope your week went well. Today's Friday. It's our last day working on the Sidewalk Bleeding. So today might be a little bit longer video because I want to go over all of the work that we did on the in-depth thought activity. So we're going to go through that today. I'm going to just jump right into it so that we can get moving. I want you to just get your plot activity out that you've written up your answers to, and we'll start going through it. So we started with the exposition. So things are a little bit more complex, right, or more subtle than in a fairy tale. That's why we started with the fairy tale. Our setting isn't known like completely, but we know that we're in what we call an urban setting. So we're kind of in a city or a town. We're in an alleyway, right? We're not out in the country. It's raining. So that's our setting. It's nighttime. There's a dance. Our main character is Andy. Andy talks about his girlfriend Laura, so she comes in at the end of the play. Then we have these people that come along that are kind of minor characters, but they could be important to Andy, but they're not because they don't help him in the end. We have a cop at the end who's very much a stock type of character, and in the meantime, we have like Angela and Freddie, the young couple. We have the drunk man. We have the woman who's kind of rooting through the garbage. Our situation is that Andy's dying. He's left the dance. He's gotten jumped by rival gang members. He's been stabbed, and now he's dying. So that's the situation. He's laying there. He needs help, and he's not doing well. Okay, so that's our exposition. So right off the bat, we should be making connections, right? Because text, we shouldn't think of them as just one thing. We should think of them as connected to other things. So that's why we're trying to make connections to The Outsiders, which we've read before. So here are some connections that I have. Number one, he gets hurt, stabbed in a rumble, right? So there's a lot of talk about that in the Outsiders. Number two, these are two rival gangs, rival groups. That's something that happens in The Outsiders a lot. Number three, we have a young boy who is dying before his time because he's been involved in this gang activity. Number four, something that matches is the clothes that they wear. Such a big determinant for the Greases and the Shosers, right? You can tell who they are by their clothes. And this is something that comes up in this story as well. This jacket matters. So there are a whole bunch of different connections, so the more you can come up with, great. All right, now let's move on to our initial incident. The initial incident is tricky. There are 2 or 3 or 4, there's several possible initial incidents, right? So the initial incident is what starts the conflict. Well, we can say it started before the story even started. Andy gets stabbed. And now we're going to find out, well, does he live or die? Like, what's going to happen here? So he's stabbed, he's in the sidewalk. So we could actually argue the initial incident starts before the story starts. Another one, possible one, is Andy realizes he's really hurt, and these people start coming, and we're wondering, is anyone ever going to help him? Right? He gets 3 people come along. None of them end up helping him. Or 3, there's 4 people altogether, but 3 different incidents. There's the man who's been drinking. There are Freddie and Angela, the young couple, and then there's the lady. So that's a possible initial incident. I'm going to come up with one that I really like. I like when he realizes that he's dying, and he knows there's nothing going to stop that. That doesn't end the story, right? There's something more now. Now this comes quite a bit later in the story. So it's a weird place for an initial incident, but he's struggling to get his jacket off, right? So I think that's a possible initial incident as well. When he decides, I'm dying, but I want to die with the jacket off. I like that one. So the way that I would describe that as being the best choice is because that's what we're really trying to find out. We're told early on Andy's dying. We're told early on that he's stabbed. That's our situation. Now we're trying to figure out, well, Andy wants to die with the jacket off. And we'll talk a little bit about why that is, but he wants to die with the jacket off. is he going to be successful in that? Okay. So that's why I think for me, that's my best choice. But there are other choices you can choose. Just make sure you can argue it and debate it and tell me why. So there are a lot of possible antagonists. There's the other group, the Guardians. There's the other gang, right? There's the knife. He personifies the knife. He says the knife wanted to stab the jacket. I really like that. Right? It wasn't about Andy. It wasn't about the person with the knife. It was the knife. I think that's interesting. So the knife could be the antagonist. The other member could be the antagonist. The people who come along and don't help can be antagonists. The injury itself. The other thing that could be the antagonist is that jacket. Again, since I picked the initial incident as him realizing that he's dying and wanting to get the jacket off, I think that for me the antagonist is that jacket. The jacket is what got him stabbed. The jacket is what he wants to get rid of before he dies, so he will be remembered as Andy and not as a Royal. He wants to be rid of that jacket. That jacket has brought only negative into his life, and in the end, in his death, he wants to be rid of it. He wants to be remembered as Andy. That's key. Okay. So we get through that, and then we go to our rising action. Now, for rising action, I just wanted you guys to pick out some signposts. So things that come up again and again, if you wanted to do that. Again and again are the jacket, the knife, that's for you, Royal, right? That phrase. Those are things that come up again and again. Laura comes up again and again. Flashback, that memory moment, lots of memory moments, right? So we have these memory moments about himself and Laura and their life together. So that's used very well to make us think this is a real human being. And he had a life, and he's not just a gang member. And he had hopes and he had dreams. That's the use of that memory moment, right? You're supposed to feel for Laura so that when she comes back later, that matters to us. Contrast and contradiction, big one here, right? Character development. He's so proud of being a Royal and so proud of that jacket. And then there comes a point where he changes his mind completely. He does a complete flip. He doesn't want to be a Royal anymore. That's brought him nothing but death. And he wants to get rid of it. That's a character change. That's a character development. That's to show, I think, the tragedy of what he's been through. Words of the wise are a little bit tough. I mean, we do have the old man telling him he shouldn't be drinking, which is ironic because it's the old man who's drinking and he's not. And if the old man wasn't drinking, might realize that this boy is in desperate need of help. Might have saved him. So there's irony. There's some irony. Okay, so thinking of a signpost, giving us examples and reasons why it's important to the story. So I've given you 4 there. Okay, let's move on then. I don't want the video to be crazy long, but I think the contrast and contradiction is the biggest notice in those signposts for me as well. Because it really shows that he's changed and shows what the jacket's really done to him. Okay, we're on to climax now. So climax, remember, if we're remembering back to the 3 little pigs, we're on the roof, and he's either going to come down and eat the pig, or the pig is going to finally be rid of him. Like, something's got to give here. Something's going to happen. How is this going to turn out once and for all and be done? So for me, because I'm sticking with the narrative that I've chosen as the antagonist being the jacket, the climax is him finally getting the jacket off. Right? He just wants it off. He just wants to be Andy. He just wants to die as an individual, as a human being, not as a part of this gang, not identified as a Royal, which is what got him killed. So to me, that's the climax. That's the fight. Is Andy going to achieve that? We know he's not going to live. And that kind of falls apart early in the story. But is he at least going to die with his identity? So that's the climax for me. There are other possible climaxes, though, right? So you could say it's when the last person doesn't help him. You could say that that's our climax, because he's just trying to get out of there. He's trying to get help. For me, I think the one that fits best is him getting off the jacket. That's his final achievement. Okay. That brings us to our falling action. So our falling action is Andy gets the jacket off, but he's got a reason why he wanted to get the jacket off. He wants to be identified as Andy. He doesn't want to be thought of as just some gang member, some thug. That's not how he wants to be seen in his death. So that's what he's trying to achieve. It's not just getting the jacket off. It's shedding that view of himself. So now we have to say, well, does he achieve that goal? Well, it depends, right? It depends on who you talk to. Because Laura keeps saying to the police officer, he's Andy. This is Andy. That's what Andy wants. Andy wants somebody to recognize that this is a tragedy. This is a human being. That this is sad that this is happening because I matter. I'm a person. And I love it that it's his girlfriend who recognizes that, right? To him, to her, he's not a royal. It's Andy. It's the person that she loved. It's the person that she dreamed of having a life with. So, in those terms, we can say, oh, he did achieve that. He achieved that goal. The other thought is, well, maybe Andy didn't achieve his goal. Maybe Andy didn't achieve his goal because when the cop sees the jacket, even though it's not on him, the cop writes, he's a royal. And even when Laura says it's Andy, he writes a royal, right? That's how he's going to be remembered to the police. That's how they are going to look at him. That's how probably a lot of people, when they hear it in the news, are going to think of him. So the reading that fits the best for me is that Andy achieves his goal. And the reason why I like that is because what I think the story is saying in some way is that Andy, he's always been more than the jacket. He may have been caught up in that, I'm a royal, but the people who love you, the people who love him, don't see him that way. And the fact that other people do, the fact that somebody with a knife stabs him despite the fact that it doesn't know anything about him, the fact that the cop just sees him as a gang member and has been killed, is kind of neutralized somewhat by the fact that someone who knows him and loves him sees him as Andy. So to me, that's the one that best fits. Now, if you think the falling action and resolution are Andy dies because the conflict is really live or die, then you're going to have different answers to that, right? Andy doesn't achieve his goal in that sense, and it would be hard to say that there's any way in which he does, except that maybe he lives on in the memory of his girlfriend or something like that. All right, so now we've gone through all of that. Go back and kind of make sure that you round it out and fill it out thoroughly. And then I want you to take out your self-assessment sheets, and I want you to, you can do this on paper, right? You don't have to print this off. I want you to do either GCO 6 or GCO 7. So GCO 6 is responding personally. So when you're responding personally, you are talking about like the connections that you made to the outsiders, for example, is responding personally. Being able to articulate your reasons for whether Andy achieves his goal or not, right? That's responding personally, very much. So you're saying, I think that he did because that can go either way. right? Or I think he didn't because. And then if you do GCO7, responding critically, that shows I understand climax, I understand rising action, I understand initial incident and conflict. So do you understand those terms well enough to discuss them? So you just want to give yourself. You don't have to give it on a 6-point scale. You can just say novice. I'm having a lot of trouble with this. Apprentice. With some work, I got some things down, um, but it was helpful to hear Mr. DeVito go over it. Or expert. I understood this really, really well. I had some really strong answers. It was interesting listening to Mr. DeVito on it, but I had some ideas of my own that were just as good or better than Mr. DeVito's. Okay, so that's your job. Go over it, decide how you did on it, and then do 1 or 2 GCO entries, GCO6 or GCO7. Have a good weekend, guys. We'll see you next week with a new story. Bye.